Hi, welcome to another episode of Look Ma No Hands. My name is Linda, and on this little podcast I talk about all things crochet, sometimes art and drawing related things. I talk about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, and if anything exciting is happening in life, I talk about that too. This week, what I'm wearing is the Pistachio Poncho by Selena Baca. It's a pattern from a book that I've used in the past. I've made a lot of the patterns from this particular book. I really like the designs in the book. It's a beginner-friendly book, so pretty much everything is, pretty straightforward. The intrigue of each project is kind of in the simplicity of the stitches, but her creative use of stitch patterning that makes kind of an interesting design on each project that she plans out in the book. So this particular one is kind of a cowl neck poncho that for myself I made the smallest size just because I don't need the extra circumference to accommodate shoulders and arms, which is one of the things I like about the patterns in this book, is that it's easy for me to customize it to my needs and just fit for myself. It tends to still be a little bit too big in the circumference, so what I did was took, I guess you could say, like a drawstring or just kind of a decorative rope, for lack of a better word, and ran it through the first row of stitches after the cowl. And then I can use that to kind of cinch up the collar to make it so that it's not so loose and baggy. I still kind of like the extra volume of the collar, being that it's a cowl neck. If I had constructed it in such a way to make it a smaller circumference, then the volume of the collar would feel confining, I guess would be the word to use. I never really cared for wearing scarves, especially when I was a kid. My parents always made me wear a scarf in the winter because I had asthma and all this and that. So I always felt very confined by them. And now as an adult, I really detest wearing a scarf, even though I know it's probably a good idea in the deep winter months when it's cold and windy here, but I don't really care for them. So this particular design has a very fluffy cowl neck design to it, which I appreciate the extra circumference to make it so that it's not so tight. And then it also just happens to be my current project for this week. I'm still working on my granny square blanket, which, like I said, is going to be pretty much the rest of the year, probably a little bit into next calendar year. It's coming along really nice. I'm about halfway through making the squares that I need for the project, and I'm kind of going through kind of methodically with planning out those squares and how many to make and all this and that. But the layout design is going to be where it really gets complicated for me. I haven't quite gotten to the point of figuring out exactly how I want to go about constructing it once I have all the squares. So that's still kind of hanging out there. But I decided to make another one of these pistachio ponchos using a different color. Instead of the dark green, I'm going to use more of like a brighter Kelly green color. And I'm making the poncho so that my mom can have one too. I thought it would be kind of a nice thing for her to have through the winter. She likes to read a lot, so I figured it would be a nice little cozy, almost like a blanket wrap to put on while she's reading. So I talked with her and said, do you want one of these? And at first she's like, yeah, and then she's no, and then she's like, okay, yeah, go ahead. So I'm making one of the ponchos for her, which leads me to talking about reading. Mom likes to read. As you all know, I always include a couple of books that I've been reading throughout the week. So this week, the first book I read was called Say You'll Remember Me by Abbott Jimenez. And I read previous books by her in the past and just really like how she designs her, like develops her characters, I guess you could say, and her storylines are always really good. This particular book is kind of in the romance genre. It's light on the romance. It's not like very heavy into like the spiciness of romance. It's definitely a slow burn, and it reads pretty easily. There is a trigger warning at the beginning of the book in terms of some topics that are a little bit heavier when it comes to like family, parents that were abusive, and there's quite in-depth discussion of Alzheimer's and dementia, so that might be triggering for some people. There is some discussion of animal abuse and mistreatment. The main character, Xavier, is a veterinarian, so all of his like career information, I guess you could say, or like the description of like his job, obviously not everything about veterinary medicine is bright and sunny, so some of the animals that he takes care of come to him via bad home situations. All of that heavy stuff aside, there are definitely some very like rom-com moments in there. Their first date does not go very well. It's a very like comedy of errors kind of thing. Just they get locked in an escape room, and just things definitely don't go as they either one of them planned or wanted to see happen, and that kind of sets up the theme for pretty much their whole relationship in this book. Like everything is just like a lot of missed opportunities and just things that make their relationship very complicated and very difficult, even though both people feel very connected to one another. They really enjoy each other's company. When they're not together, they feel very lonely, and just like the light of their life is off. They just feel that connection that they need each other. And it was a good book in terms of all the romance stuff. All that other heavy stuff makes it a little difficult to read. So definitely, if any of those topics really would get to you, I would not recommend this book, because it is very frank discussions of all of those. But other than that, I really enjoyed this book. Like, it just was one that I didn't feel like, oh, I gotta go listen to this story, I gotta go read this book. It was definitely a book that I just, like, every hour I was like, okay, let's keep going. So yeah, I liked this one. And then the other book that I read this week was called Kill Them with Canvas by Bailee Abbott, and this is a murder mystery. The two main characters of this particular book are sisters who run kind of one of those sip and paint type of businesses, and they live in a small town. Their small town is one of the, very much like a Hallmark kind of situation in terms of like the vibe of the community. And during one of their painting events, one of the attendees turns up dead the next morning, and someone painted the scenario and kind of incorporated the death into their painting. And so the mystery part is trying to figure out who from the painting party could have been the culprit of this person's demise. And there are a lot of different characters in the story that suspicion is cast upon them. I'm finding that I really enjoy reading mystery novels like this, the murder mysteries, because I like picking apart like all of the different characters and details of the characters that could kind of point them out as the suspect. It's interesting to read just the way the authors kind of like take you from one character to the other and try and distract you or lead you a certain direction. So yeah, this book was really good, really fun. A lot of the side characters were interesting, and like how the main characters and the side characters interact and things like that. It was a fun book. So if you're into murder mysteries, this one is definitely one that you should put on your list of books to read. It's called Kill Them with Canvas by Bailee Abbott. And then for this week, what I've been watching, a little bit of this and that. My watching partner ditched me once he got the clearance to go back to life as usual. I tried to keep him home as much as possible in the last week and a half or so since his surgery, just to kind of give him time to recover and get back to life after his procedure. So I told him he had to wait until he had his follow-up visit post-surgery before he could go over to Grandma and Grandpa's house to spend time with the doggos. And he was not happy about that, but I thought it would be best to keep him home to avoid the dogs kind of jumping on him and doing anything that could jeopardize his recovery. So as soon as he got the clearance, he said, "See you later, Mom, I'm out of here." But we watched, I watched General Hospital, and then he had to get caught up. He's almost caught up. He missed yesterday's episode, Friday's episode. So a lot of drama unfolding in Port Charles, and he's like thoroughly gobsmacked, flabbergasted, all of those words over how things can turn deadly so quickly in the show. He's definitely enjoying the drama of daytime television. We're watching Dancing with the Stars, which has been quite interesting. We are happy with the direction everything's going. We're still pulling for our favorites. We discuss every week who is the one that we're really hoping will win. There's been a little bit of debate between our house and my mom's house as to who we think should be the final winner. So we'll see what this next episode brings us. Still watching Who's the Boss and Golden Girls, coming to the pretty much tail end of Who's the Boss. Just kind of randomly watching Golden Girls here and there. I love that show. It's so much fun. And then continuing to watch the Holiday Baking Championship. I love a good reality competition show, so this one is proving to be right up there with some of my favorites. On Netflix, we are watching The Resident, which is a medical drama. I watched pretty much the whole series when it first aired on Fox. Tim didn't really want to get into it at that point. He was busy with school and just different things that made it less appealing to him. So he hadn't watched it then, but we're watching it now, and he was commenting on how it seems to be a show that's more on like the business end of medicine, which is interesting, and he kind of prefers that because he doesn't like all of the graphic like surgeries and traumas and things like that you see in some other medical dramas. So he really enjoys watching The Resident. And then we've been watching The Way Home, which has been so much fun. Like I said, I've been watching it back. I watched it when it first aired on Hallmark. Now I'm getting the guys to watch it with me and hopefully get caught up in time for the new season in a couple months so that they can watch it alongside me. I don't have to be by myself and be like freaking out about all the cool things that happen on that show. I really love that show. The Residents on Netflix, which is a new show from Shondaland. We all know that I love pretty much anything she does. When we saw the kind of teaser for it, Tim and I both looked at each other and said, okay, that looks like something we could get into. It's kind of like a murder mystery. There's a murder in the residential part of the White House, and kind of in the vein of like Clue, they're trying to figure out who killed, I guess you could say, the butler. And the writing that happens on this show, and like the concept of the show, is quite a bit different than a lot of the other programs that come from Shonda. This one is kind of leaning more towards like comedic, which I think is an interesting take on things. Like, it's just fun. And Tim and I were talking about it, and he said he didn't realize that things that come from that kind of production company or whatever, from that, I don't know what you would call it, media group, could be so comedic. He's so used to seeing things like Bridgerton or Grey's Anatomy or Private Practice, and like all of those are like dramas, and now this show has so much humor in it that he was kind of taken aback, like, oh, this is so different than what usually comes from this particular creator. And we've really been enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun, just again trying to figure out like who could possibly be the one that did this. As of right now, we have not been able to figure it out. We're kind of excited to see if they actually disclose that during this first season, or if we're gonna have to continue to watch to find out who done it. So yeah, we're enjoying that program. And then I started watching on Prime Video the program called the Runarounds. It's a teen drama, I would say, very similar to Dawson's Creek. I know I've compared other teen dramas to that as well. That's just kind of my frame of reference, obviously kind of giving away my age there. It's just, yeah. This particular program is about like a garage band, I guess you could say, and the kids are just about finishing up high school and trying to figure out like their plans for the future, and each one of the band members kind of has an idea of what they want to do. Some of them, their idea of what to do is basically just like do nothing and have a good time playing my guitar and, you know, performing in the band. The only thing is some of the other band members have plans that aren't about smoking pot and playing music. So it's interesting to see like how the characters are developing and how the story will continue if the band doesn't want to stay together. Immediately within like the first episode, the band starts falling apart. Like, they decide somebody isn't worthy of being in the band, and so they try to kick them out, and it's just, yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far. I've been wanting to watch this program for a while, hoping that Tim would watch with me, but he's like, ugh, it doesn't really look like my vibe. I think it's perfectly his vibe, but he's decided that he's not watching that one. One of the reasons why I was so interested in watching it is the main character is played by one of the actors from General Hospital. I want to say his name's William Lipton, and I really liked his character on GH, so I wanted to see like how he can step into a different role, and just kind of how his skills have developed over the couple of years since he's been off of General Hospital, and seeing him in something besides just GH. So far, I think he's been doing a pretty good job. The one thing that kind of frustrates me about it is I know about how old the actor is, so the fact that they're pushing him into a teenage role kind of annoys me, because I know he's like entering into like his mid-20s, and I always hate as a parent seeing much older people portraying teenagers, because then it causes problems with like teenagers having difficulties understanding why, like just like self-image type issues. And so I wish they would cast teenage actors in teenage roles, because even though it doesn't seem like 4 or 5 years is that big of an age gap, when you're talking teenage to young adult, it makes a difference. So I just, yeah, I understand why Hollywood does that, but I don't know. Like I said, as a parent, it just irks me. So that's pretty much the rundown of what I've been up to this week. So let me know in the comments if you've gotten anything on your reading list that you've really enjoyed, or if there's something that you've been watching that you think I should check out. That would be, cool to get some new suggestions. Yeah, I'm not sure what will be in the pipeline for next week, being that it is the week leading up to the holiday here in the United States, the Thanksgiving holiday. I don't know how much reading or watching I'll be doing, especially since a lot of the shows are not on next week. Yeah, we'll have to see what I can come up with for next week. Maybe there'll be a lot of stitching going on. I don't know. So, yeah, if this is your first time here, I hope you enjoyed the program this week. If you did, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. To all the people that have come through time and again, week after week, I appreciate you guys coming in, taking a listen. I know probably it gets kind of boring being the same thing over and over again, or maybe you kind of like the routine. I'm one that likes the routine, so that's why I keep doing the same thing over and over again. If you think you might know somebody that would be interested in watching, go ahead and share the channel with them. And until next week, I hope you have a good one.